Have you ever walked into a luxurious place, only to be judged instantly based on how you look? Have you ever wondered, if a powerful man disguised himself as a nobody, how would he be treated? The Rock, a global icon, didn't come to Titan Motors to flaunt his fame. He came in silence, wearing an old hoodie, worn-out shoes, and one question. Does kindness still have a place in a world where everything is priced in dollars? He stepped into the very showroom he owned and was dismissed. But the big reveal was only the beginning. What followed was a journey that spanned years, crossed continents, and challenged culture, loyalty, and the very definition of human worth. This is not the story of a CEO doing a surprise inspection. This is a quiet revolution, where the weakest voice can transform a system, and the strongest must relearn what it means to be human. Step through the doors, but don't look at the cars. Look at how they look at you, when they still don't know who you are. Noon in Glendale, and the city was burning. The sun hung high, casting harsh rays onto the asphalt streets that shimmered as if melting. The air was dry and thick, like an invisible sheet of glass muffling every sound, every movement. On the highway, waves of rising heat blurred everything in the distance. Glendale, the heart of the West Coast elite, was breathing in the heat of luxury and pride. On the city's main boulevard stood a 3-story glass building named Titan One Motors, the flagship branch of the Titan Motors empire, gleaming and towering. This showroom was reserved for true VIPs only. The luxury cars were arranged like works of art, with lighting carefully curated so that every curve and line on their bodies evoked power, speed, and class. But behind the building, in a hidden corner of the service parking lot, an old black SUV from 2010 slowly pulled in. No special plates, no one opened the door, no bodyguards, and no one paid attention. But from inside that vehicle, a man stepped out. The Rock. He wore a low baseball cap, a faded hoodie, worn jeans, and scuffed sneakers. No glamour, no red carpet smile, just a simple, strong, and quiet man. His eyes squinted against the sunlight, but the look they held wasn't obscured by his humble appearance. It was sharp, focused, and observant. I'm used to being underestimated, but today I need to know, how do people treat me when they don't know who I am? He stood still for a few seconds, took a deep breath, then walked straight toward the showroom's side entrance. Each step was deliberate, as if crushing layers of prejudice that life had thrown on his back over the years. The glass door opened, and cool air conditioning immediately wrapped around his sun-soaked, solid frame. Inside, it was a different world. The scent of new leather, polished wax, and a faint whiff of cologne from the luxury guest lounge. Under soft golden lights, the cars sat in quiet stillness, waiting for a worthy hand to reach out and claim them. He walked in. No one greeted him. A group of employees sat behind the reception counter, chatting and joking. One glanced at him, gave him a once-over from head to toe, then returned to their screen as if checking a defective product. No one knew. No one understood that the man standing before them was the official investor behind Titan One, and the very reason they had jobs here today. He continued walking inward. Each of his steps carried meaning. No rush, no need to prove anything. He was simply observing the space, the looks, the sounds, and the glaring absence of hospitality. Then he stopped before a gleaming black sports car, the Aventura Blackline 25, the latest, most powerful, and luxurious model at Titan One, priced close to $400,000. Spotlights traced the vehicle's body, a streak of light slicing through the air like a blade. The Rock reached out and gently touched the door handle. A sharp sound of high heels echoed behind him. "Excuse me, but we kindly ask that customers not touch the vehicles without a sales advisor present." He turned around. Marla Cray, a senior sales manager, has 12 years of experience in the luxury car industry. Dressed in a fitted black suit, a woman's Patek Philippe watch, and 10 centimeters Louboutin heels. Her eyes were razor sharp. Her smile was polite, but cold. "I'm Marla. Is there something I can help you with today?" The Rock withdrew his hand calmly. "I'm just looking at a few models." Marla glanced him over, a scrutinizing gaze veiled beneath a layer of professionalism. Titan One is a showroom for premium-class vehicles. Every model requires financial verification and an appointment in advance. He nodded, unfazed. Then, I turned to look at the other cars. He didn't ask anything, didn't explain himself. But in his eyes, a subtle crack appeared, in the trust he'd once had in the place he'd invested in with full respect. Marla remained where she was, watching his every move as if he might break something. Perhaps, she added, I could show you some of our pre-owned models. The branch across the street has a few quality vehicles that are more accessible. The Rock let out a soft laugh, not because of what she said, but because it was so familiar. They always follow the same script, and I'm always cast as the extra, until I stand up. He looked at her. His gaze wasn't cold, but it was deep and cutting. Are you sure you know what I need? Marla stiffened, then quickly regained her composure, ready to respond when the phone in the Rock's pocket vibrated. He looked at the screen. Nathaniel Crow. He picked up, stepped away a few paces, and said quietly, Nate, I'm at Titan 1. Something interesting's going on. Swing by. Ending the call, he turned back to Marla. Could you call the regional director for me? I think he'd want to meet me. Marla narrowed her eyes. The director doesn't meet with unscheduled guests. The Rock smiled. Well then, when he arrives, I hope you're still standing right here. The afternoon at Titan 1 Motors carried on as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Staff moved about, customers were sparse, and the sunlight streamed diagonally through the tall glass windows, casting reflections of luxury cars like sleeping beasts. But right in the center of that calm, a strange energy was forming. A fracture, small but impossible to ignore. Marla Cray, senior sales manager, stood in the glass hallway on the first floor, her eyes fixed on the man in a faded ash-gray hoodie strolling among the expensive vehicles. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his identity. But one thing she knew for sure, he didn't belong here. Marla was 38, sharp and seasoned. She had stood in countless lobbies like this one, from New York to Las Vegas, from Beverly Hills to Dubai. She recognized the eyes of potential clients. She even knew the brands of cologne they preferred. Every small gesture, every step into a showroom was enough for Marla to appraise someone's worth. And that man carried none of the signs of being worthy. Worn-down heels, unbranded hoodie, old SUV with no special plates, doesn't fit. In Marla's mind, all the client calculations quickly added up to a negative. She had dismissed hundreds like him, without the slightest hesitation. To her, selling luxury cars wasn't about emotional outreach. It was the art of selecting the right people. Titan 1 ran like a precision machine. Every employee knew their position, their timing, and their expressions for each customer approach. Each car was wiped down with dedicated leather cloths. Each step was meant to echo in polished leather soles, not worn-out rubber shoes. Marla was a crucial cog in that machine. She upheld the image, protected the standard, ensured that no one could say Titan 1 lacked class. But the presence of that man, a man not on any appointment list, it was like a spark landing on a pool of gasoline. She could feel the eyes of a few junior staffers, quietly asking, Who is that? Why does the manager look tense? Marla walked toward the Rock again when she noticed him standing in front of the Volin Prime S9, a newly imported high-performance hybrid model. Sir, I've already mentioned, if you'd like assistance, please take a seat in the lounge and I'll schedule time with the appropriate department. The Rock turned to her, eyes calm. You think I'm not right for this car? Marla shrugged. I think you should be realistic. This model isn't meant for the general market. And what exactly is general? The Rock asked, his voice low, but not threatening. She hesitated. For the first time in her sales career, Marla didn't have a perfect answer. After the brief exchange, she returned to the counter, but her mind was uneasy. She opened her laptop and typed a few lines of an email, but her thoughts kept circling back to that man's gaze. Why wasn't he angry? Why didn't he walk away? And why do I feel unsettled? She didn't realize she was confused, because her entire career had been built on the belief that I am always right. The showroom doorbell rang. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit stepped inside. Shiny black leather shoes, a navy-striped tie, titanium-framed glasses. Nathaniel Crow, regional director of Titan Motors. Marla immediately stood up straight. Mr. Crow, I wasn't aware you were coming in today. Nathaniel said nothing. He walked straight to the center of the showroom, where the Rock stood, and extended a hand. Dwayne, good to see you again. I came as soon as I got your call. The air froze. Marla felt like she'd been shocked. Her hand fell to her side, the clipboard dropping to the floor. Dwayne? She repeated hoarsely. Marla, Nathaniel turned to her. I see you've met the new owner of Titan 1. The entire showroom exploded in silence. Marla didn't know how to respond. She looked at the Rock, the man she had stopped from touching a car, who had suggested visiting the used car branch, now standing before her as a living contradiction to everything she had assumed. That worth isn't about appearances. I didn't know. I didn't mean to," her voice faltered. The Rock stepped forward, not with anger, but with clarity. "I don't need you to apologize for not recognizing me." He paused, looking straight into her. "I need you to consider this. If I weren't me, would I still deserve your respect?" Marla nodded, slowly. She bowed her head, not out of fear, but because for the first time in her life, she felt small. Nathaniel looked around and announced loudly, "All staff to the meeting room, right now." The Rock turned to Marla. "I hope you'll join us as well." She nodded. This time, there was no facade, no professional mask, only the real person left, with everything still waiting to be made right. The soft chime of the digital doorbell echoed through the cold space of Titan I motors, like an invisible voice awakening a system long asleep in habit and prejudice. The staff, who had been lingering behind the counter, still holding documents or disposable coffee cups, jolted at the sound of the regional director Nathaniel Crow's voice. "All staff meeting room, right now." That command had never been issued during midweek afternoons, the time when Titan I usually hosted CEOs, celebrities, or Western collectors. But no one dared to hesitate. The entire showroom seemed to hold its breath as people slowly made their way toward the glass staircase, heading to the main conference room on the second floor. The Rock walked last, his eyes calmly scanned every face, not with resentment, not with contempt, just a silent reflection, like a mirror. Each glance from him made the other look down, not out of fear, but because they saw something of themselves in his gaze. The main conference room at Titan I was minimalist, refined, and proud. Bulletproof glass walls, a long ebony wood conference table that looked like a fashion runway, imported Italian leather chairs, ceiling-embedded projectors, and wireless JBL speakers. Everything was designed for discussing targets, profits, colorful reports, and praise from VIP clients. But today, no one turned on the projector. No targets were presented. They just sat there, facing each other and facing the truth. Nathaniel stepped to the head of the table and gently placed a leather notebook down. "I'll let Dwayne begin." The Rock stepped forward. He brought no documents, no assistant, no slides. He simply stood there, tall, steady, his deep black eyes carrying an entire sky of experience. "Thank you for being here." He looked around, looked at every single person. No one dared avert their gaze. "I came here today not as the owner. I came here as a regular customer." He paused. A man in a hoodie, driving an old SUV, no appointment, no business card, no name. The tension in the room was as tight as a string. The youngest staff member in the room, named Evan, blinked repeatedly. Marla sat at the far end of the table, hands clenched gently together. "Mambas deber, pomis fixed amongst your palms." The Rock continued. "And I was welcomed just as someone like that usually is, with suspicion, caution, and quietly pushed aside." No one spoke. A few glanced at Marla. She didn't react, but her shoulders trembled slightly. No one had ever seen the steel-nerved manager shake in front of any client. But today she wasn't facing a customer. She was facing the truth about herself. The Rock slowly walked a few steps down the length of the table. "I'm not here to accuse. I'm here to ask. If someone doesn't fit into the luxury image you expect, do they still deserve your respect?" Silence. He looked at Marla, but his voice wasn't directed only at her. "If I weren't me, would I still be someone worth listening to today?" Evan raised his hand. His hand trembled slightly. "Mr. Rock, I'm the one at the counter when you walked in. I saw you, and I didn't dare approach." The Rock gave a gentle nod. "And what did you think when you saw me?" "I thought maybe you were lost, or didn't intend to buy anything." The Rock nodded, then turned to the whole room. "Who here has never thought the same when meeting a customer who didn't look like a VIP?" No one raised a hand, but the downcast eyes were more honest than any spoken answer. The Rock turned back to look at Marla. She remained silent, her hands woven tightly beneath the table. Then he nodded, as if to say, "Now's the time." Marla stood up. Her heels clicked lightly against the wooden floor. For the first time, no longer the sound of power, but of reckoning. She looked around, then looked The Rock in the eye. "I was the one who treated you in a way that was undeserving." She swallowed hard. "I don't have an excuse. All I had were habits. And those habits were shaped by a mistaken belief that I could judge people by how they looked." She paused, her eyes reddening. "Today, I saw clearly what I once called professionalism was really just organized prejudice." A long silence followed, not heavy but profound. Nathaniel stepped up beside The Rock. As regional director, I'd like to formally announce, starting today, Titan 1 will be the first to implement a new service culture training program. He opened his notebook and read aloud. Every customer must be approached and greeted within the first 15 seconds. No customer may be categorized based on their clothing, vehicle, or manner of speaking. Each month, the showroom will host a mystery customer day to audit cultural behavior. Any staff member found displaying discriminatory behavior, even indirectly, will be required to undergo mandatory training. The Rock added, "I don't want Titan to be the place that sells the best cars. I want Titan to be the place where anyone is seen for who they truly are. No proof required." The room remained silent. Then Evan clapped, then another, and soon the entire room stood in applause, not out of formality, but as a release. The Rock looked around. The same people who had judged him were now facing their own truths, but he didn't look at them with victory in his eyes. He looked like someone who had just rekindled a flame long buried under dust. He turned to Marla, voice low. "I don't need you to become someone else. I just hope you'll become the best version of yourself." Marla nodded. For the first time in her life, she cried, not out of weakness, but because she had finally found the courage to face herself. The next morning at Titan 1, Motors was no longer just another morning. The glass doors opened to welcome the early sunlight, but also ushered in a new atmosphere, not because the weather had changed, but because the people inside had started to. Marla walked into the showroom lobby earlier than usual. There were no sharp clicks of high heels like every other day. Today, she wore low-heeled shoes for the first time in her 10 years as sales manager. No clipboard in hand, no folders, just a cup of coffee and a questioning gaze. If all these years have been a rushed journey, then today, I have to learn how to stand still, Marla thought to herself. In a corner of the showroom, Evan was polishing the glass of the Aventra Blackline, the same car The Rock had touched the day before. The young man looked up as he saw Marla approaching. Unlike before, his eyes showed neither panic nor hesitation, just a small nod, polite and proper. Marla paused, hesitating. "Yvan, yesterday you were brave. Thank you." Evan smiled gently. "I just told the truth. For the first time, it felt like I needed to." Marla nodded, but what surprised her even more was when Evan asked, "Are you okay?" Marla looked at him, and for the first time in her life, she didn't answer with a cold, managerial phrase. She spoke the truth. "No, but I'm learning how to be better." That afternoon, the internal Titan 1 system began rolling out the official memo from the regional director regarding the implementation of the new service culture model. Many staff welcomed it with enthusiasm, but a few eyes remained skeptical. In the break room, 3 veteran employees whispered, "New culture? Just another way to get us doing extra work. Does anyone even remember that customer who slammed the table because he wasn't treated better than the guy who walked in on foot?" Marla overheard that conversation as she walked by. She didn't say anything. She simply waited behind the door until they finished speaking, then stepped inside with a smile. "Thank you for sharing your thoughts so honestly. This afternoon, I'd like to invite everyone to our first Culture Cafe. No meetings, no notes, just real conversations." One of the 3 men frowned. "Honesty isn't always a good thing, you know." Marla didn't flinch. "Whether it's good or not depends on whether we're building Titan to protect a fortress, or opening the gates to let something better in." That very afternoon, as Marla was speaking with a group of new employees about how to welcome customers, a man dressed in shabby clothes walked into the showroom. Wrinkled khaki pants, a faded shirt, and worn-out sneakers with torn heels. He walked straight toward the most luxurious SUV on display. Evan glanced at Marla. She nodded slightly. Evan stepped forward and smiled. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I assist you today?" The man smiled back. "I'd like to test drive this one. If it feels right, I'll make the payment via bank transfer today." The air in the room tensed slightly. A few older staff chuckled quietly, but Evan held his gaze. Marla stepped up beside him. "Of course, may I please see your license and a few documents? Then Evan and I will accompany you to the test drive area." The man nodded and pulled out his wallet. Inside was a platinum VIP banking card. Evan glanced briefly at Marla. She simply nodded. No surprise, no expression, just a quiet look of affirmation. This is exactly why we changed. That evening, as Marla finished her shift and was preparing to go home, her phone vibrated. An unknown number appeared on the screen, but her instinct told her it was him. She picked up. "Hello?" A deep, familiar voice came from the other end. "Hi, Marla. This is Dwayne." She stood silent for a moment, then softly replied, Thank you for calling. I still can't quite believe yesterday really happened. I am calling because I know change isn't easy, but I also know you're strong enough to lead it. She didn't speak. Her heart stirred with something. Not fear, not admiration, but the feeling of being seen exactly when she doubted herself most. The Rock continued. Next week, I'd like to return to Titan 1, not to check on anything, but to stand with you, walk beside you. Marla looked up at the ceiling, her eyes wet. I'll be waiting. 1 week later, Friday morning, 8:15 a.m. The Titan 1 showroom still gleamed under the morning sun, but deep within it, something was changing. Employees no longer arrived carrying only the scent of luxury cologne or a KPI sheet in their pockets. They carried something else, expectation. Something more important than sales numbers was on its way. The Rock would return, not as an owner coming to inspect, but as someone who had planted a profound question and was now returning to see whether anyone had the courage to answer it. Evan stood in front of the mirror in the break room, adjusting his collar. His hands trembled slightly, though he tried to stay calm. Marla passed by and placed a hand on his shoulder. Today, you just need to be yourself. No need to pretend otherwise. Evan nodded softly. Do you think he'll be pleased? Marla didn't answer right away. She looked out the glass doors, where a black SUV was slowly pulling into the parking lot. I don't think he's here for approval. I think he's here to find truth. The SUV was parked in the spot usually reserved for VIP clients. The door opened. No disguise, no hoodie, no lowered head. The Rock stepped out in a simple white shirt, black jeans, and an expression like someone returning home from a long journey. No bodyguards, no assistants, just himself, and a soft smile when he saw Marla waiting at the main entrance. Good morning. Welcome back. That was all they said, no mention of the past. But the air seemed to pause for a few seconds, because everyone understood. This was the next chapter of an unfinished story. Marla led him through each section, where every employee stood tall, their eyes steady and unflinching. Each one greeted him, not extravagantly, not robotically, but with authenticity in their voice. In the hybrid car display section, an older customer was speaking with a new employee named Liam. The Rock stopped for a moment to listen. Liam didn't recognize him, but still bowed slightly with both hands and a sincere smile. We don't sell cars. We help people find the vehicle that fits their journey. The Rock turned to Marla. Those words, were they yours? Marla shook her head. No, they were his. I only asked the question. The answers, they come from their hearts. Not everything was smooth. In the break room, a group of veteran employees had gathered. I still don't understand why we all have to change because of one anonymous visit. We used to have the highest sales numbers. Now we're being told to be nicer. Another glanced around and lowered his voice. I heard that next week, The Rock will be holding one-on-one meetings. He's reevaluating everyone. The mood dropped. Apprehension, tinged with fear, began to creep through the cracks that Marla had been working hard to mend day by day. That afternoon, Marla led The Rock into a small meeting room at the back of the showroom. On the table were 2 cups of coffee, one for him, one for her. What do you want to ask me today? Marla began. The Rock didn't look at the performance charts hanging behind her. He looked directly into her eyes. If I don't come back tomorrow, will Titan 1 keep changing? Or go back to the way it was? Marla fell silent. It sounded like a simple question, but it was like a strong wind blowing into the hearts of those who thought they were already grounded. I can't guarantee everyone will change forever, but I can promise I won't go back to who I used to be. The Rock nodded, his eyes softened. That's enough for a beginning. Just before 5 p.m., a middle-aged woman entered the showroom. She wore an old office outfit, hair hastily tied back, her face worn with exhaustion. Beside her was a 10-year-old girl in a wheelchair. The girl's face lit up when she saw the mini electric car on display. Marla, just leaving the meeting room with The Rock, noticed the scene. The mother approached the reception counter awkwardly. Excuse me, I just wanted to let my daughter look for a bit. She loves electric cars, but we're not here to buy. The receptionist, one of those who had opposed the changes, immediately replied, Sorry, the display area is only open to guests with appointments. I hope you understand. The little girl lowered her head. Her mother turned to push her away. The Rock, standing upstairs, witnessed the entire exchange. He quickly came down the stairs. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't scold, but his words were loud enough for everyone to hear. What are we doing? No one answered. The employee looked down, flustered. I was just following protocol. The Rock looked around, then said gently, "Protocol is not an excuse to deny compassion." He knelt down and smiled at the girl. "Would you like to sit in the car?" The girl's eyes widened. "I can?" "Of course." Marla rushed over to help. She and The Rock carefully lifted the girl from her wheelchair into the driver's seat of the mini-electric car. The girl beamed with joy. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. All the staff gathered around in silence. The Rock turned to them. "This is the real test, not about sales, but about the heart." Before leaving the showroom, The Rock gathered all the employees in the main lobby. "I don't need you to change just because I'm here, but if today reminds you that everyone who walks through that door deserves to be heard, then tomorrow, Titan One won't need anyone to remind you again." He looked at Marla. "You're no longer the gatekeeper. You're the one who opens the gate." Marla didn't say anything, but her tears fell, not out of weakness, but because she knew, without a doubt, she was in the right place at the right time, fulfilling the right role. Evan stepped forward, raised his hand. "If I may say something," the whole room turned. "That day, when I let you walk through the door without stopping you, I felt ashamed. But today, I'm proud to be here, when Titan truly changed." Applause followed, not thunderous, but real, like a promise, from those who once doubted the most. Monday morning, as soon as Marla stepped into Titan One, the large screen in the lobby lit up with a glaring headline. Titan One, luxury image, suspicious service. Was the undercover CEO disrespected in his own showroom? The article featured a security camera still. The Rock, dressed simply, was standing calmly at the reception desk. At the bottom was the logo of a media channel known for hunting down corporate drama. The entire showroom fell silent. Marla looked around. Confused stares, whispers, doubt, fear. Evan stammered, Who leaked that footage?" Marla didn't answer. She simply looked up at the video one more time, then turned away, her voice steady. "It doesn't matter who did it. What matters is how we respond." Within less than 24 hours, the story had gone viral. Some praised The Rock for bravely experiencing things as an ordinary customer, but many others harshly criticized Titan One, calling it a luxurious but discriminatory system that sees wallets, not people. Marla was named directly. She received hundreds of negative comments. Some called her a hypocrite, some demanded her dismissal, some called for a boycott of the entire Titan Motors brand. In the PR office, communication staff were flustered. "Do we issue a public response? Maybe a press release?" The Rock said nothing. He sat in the center of the conference room, eyes on the screen displaying trending hashtags. Then, quietly, "Fighting back publicly will only make it worse. The only real response is action." That afternoon, a man walked into Titan One. Perfectly tailored suit, luxury cologne, measured, confident movements. His name was Logan Pierce, the former executive director of Titan One before The Rock took over. Logan had built a reputation for closing outrageous deals with the ultra-wealthy, but it was also notorious for a culture of quiet discrimination and high-pressure incentive systems. He shook hands with a few former staff, people who had quietly resisted The Rock's new culture. Marla heard the news and approached with a cautious gaze. "What brings you back?" Logan smiled. "She's just checking in on a few old colleagues, and maybe offering the media a different perspective on Titan One, before it turns into an emotions showroom instead of a business." Marla narrowed her eyes. "What are you planning?" Just telling the truth. People deserve to know what Titan used to be, and what it's now losing." 2 days later, The Rock appeared on a high-profile talk show with over 12 million viewers. The host, a sharp-witted woman, got straight to the point. Do you regret letting yourself be treated that way? In your own showroom?" The Rock smiled. "I don't regret it. I knew it was the only way to see the truth others have to endure every day. But do you believe the system can really change, or is it all just performance?" He looked straight into the camera. "Real change doesn't start with a statement. It starts with someone willing to look at themselves, and I see them doing that, one person, one day at a time." "Including Marla Cray?" He nodded. "Especially her." Right after the interview, social media began to shift. Viewers were moved. Some of those who had criticized began deleting their comments. But Logan didn't stop. He posted a direct video slamming Titan One, mocking the sentimental culture, claiming that business isn't a place for healing, it's a place to win. Marla heard the news while standing in front of a mirror in the locker room. She looked into her own eyes. For the first time, not wearing any makeup to hide anything. She stepped outside, gathered all the staff, and in front of everyone she said, "I used to be afraid of being called a hypocrite, but what I fear more is the day any of you have to hide your feelings just to keep your job." She paused. "If anyone thinks Titan One is weak because we listen, then let them see today. We listen not because we are weak, but because we want to be strong the right way." 3 days later, Titan One held a press conference. No press releases, no marketing talk, just space for real customers and staff to share real stories. An elderly woman shared how, last year, her son, a black man, had been refused service, and how Marla had come to their home to personally apologize. A new employee recounted how he got his interview because The Rock himself had called. After reading a heartfelt feedback email the young man had sent, at the end of the event, The Rock took the stage and closed with a single sentence. "We are not perfect, but we're trying, in the only way that matters, by facing what hurts the most." 3 weeks after the explosive press conference, Titan One was being hailed as a symbol of corporate culture transformation. A flood of praise-filled articles followed. Forbes called it the softest yet deepest revolution in the luxury auto industry in the past decade. But just as the applause reached its peak, the real storm began. Inside Titan One, not everyone was celebrating. Logan Pierce, the former executive director who had been replaced, hadn't given up on returning. From a private office in the old business district, he was orchestrating sabotage from afar. Logan began by reaching out to 3 veteran employees at Titan One, people who had once been his right-hand men when he held power. In secret meetings, he promised, "When I return, you'll get back what you deserve. No more of this useless emotional nonsense driving sales." At the same time, an internal document in which Marla had openly reflected on past mistakes was leaked. A tabloid site used excerpts from it to accuse Titan One of hypocrisy, hiding managerial weakness behind emotional theatrics. While Marla and the leadership team scrambled to contain the media crisis, Evan, the young man who had become the symbol of change, was suddenly accused of leaking the internal email. A system access log showed Evan's account was the last to open the sensitive file. The legal department requested that Marla issue a temporary suspension. Evan was stunned. Marla, even more so. She called Evan to her office. "Did you do it?" Evan shook his head, eyes red. "No, I swear. I only opened it to learn how to write emails like you. I didn't send it to anyone." Marla looked into his eyes. She believed him, but she also knew belief alone wasn't enough to keep Titan from collapsing. She was forced to sign the suspension order. An anonymous group calling itself Titan Core sent an open letter to all staff, demanding a rebalancing between emotion and performance. One section read, "We're becoming therapists instead of car dealers. It's time we return to a sales-first model." An internal meeting was held. Marla walked into a room thick with silence. A senior employee stood up. "If you can't increase our numbers, then no matter how ethical you are, this showroom won't survive." Marla responded, voice restrained, "If survival is measured only in numbers, then even you can be replaced by a cheaper AI salesman." No one replied, but she knew a rebellion was brewing. The Rock called Marla from overseas. His voice was low and resolute. "I won't interfere. If I step in, Titan will never truly belong to you." Marla stood silent for a moment, then said, "I understand, and I agree. If I can't hold on to it, I don't deserve to have it." 2 days later, an audio recording was leaked online. Doctored clips from internal meetings, edited to suggest Marla was dismissive of customers and biased toward younger staff. Everyone was stunned. Logan was behind it, but no proof surfaced. Marla gathered the entire team and gave them a choice. "If any of you believe I no longer belong here, you're free to leave. I won't stop you." 7 people stood up, including someone once very close to her, but no one said anything cruel. They just walked out quietly. Marla stood in the room as it slowly emptied. Her chest tightened, but her gaze did not waver. Evan, still suspended, sent an email to the entire company. "I've never seen anyone as brave as Marla. If she's taken down just because she's not like the other executives, then maybe this industry really does need a total reset." The message spread like wildfire across the internal network. A group of young employees organized a meeting called Culture That Doesn't Back Down. During the gathering, they shared stories of being looked down upon by customers and how Titan had stood by them. The Rock appeared quietly at the end of the session. He said only one sentence. "I didn't come to help. I came to witness. you are rewriting the definition of success. After Titan 1 withstood its internal crisis, The Rock officially announced an unprecedented initiative, scaling the human-centered service culture model across the entire Titan Motors dealership network nationwide. The entire industry was stunned. Experts called it a bold move, inspiring but operationally unrealistic. Marla, now an internal symbol of the movement, was appointed as Chief Culture Officer, responsible for training, implementing, and overseeing the model at over 30 showrooms across the United States. But the wider the model spread, the more it faced the limits of people, cost, and belief. At the Dallas, Texas showroom, one of the first to undergo transformation, tensions quickly surfaced. The manager there, Mr. Brent, 52 years old, with over 25 years in the automotive industry, sent a critical email. "I support respect, but if staff have to stop and listen to every customer's story, there won't be time left to sell cars." Marla flew to Dallas herself. A closed-door meeting with Brent lasted more than 2 hours. She asked him, "Do you want employees to sell cars or build trust so customers come back on their own?" Brent replied, "I want both, but I don't believe they can coexist." Marla simply said, "Then let me stay here for 7 days. If, after 1 week, sales drop, I'll pull the model out." Day 1 to day 3, nothing changed. Staff were confused. Some claimed Marla was just an inspirational director who didn't understand real pressure. Day 4, a major customer, the owner of a Mexican restaurant chain, came in to buy a car for his son. Dressed simply, he was mocked by a new staffer. "This is a luxury showroom, not a flea market." Marla witnessed it firsthand. She approached, apologized, and brought the customer to a private room. 3 days later, the man bought 5 Titan SUVs and posted a video praising Marla online. It reached 2 million views. Brent said nothing, but after that he came to her. "Maybe I've been selling cars for so long, I forgot why I started." News of the success in Dallas spread fast, but with it came external pressure. A rival dealership chain released a satire video mocking Titan. "Here, you'll be asked about your feelings before your financing." A major investor demanded that The Rock slow down cultural rollout, increase quarterly efficiency. The Rock called a strategic board meeting. In the closed-door session, one question was raised. "Can kindness be measured?" Marla answered, "No, but without it, every other metric is meaningless." As the expansion reached the East Coast, something unexpected happened at the Boston showroom. Branch director June Carver passed away from a stroke. June had been one of the strongest supporters of the new model. In her office, they found a handwritten notebook. "As long as I'm alive, I'll make sure every employee knows they are seen." June's death made many wonder. Are we sacrificing too much for an ideal? Marla flew to Boston. At the memorial, she stood among the staff. No grand speech. She simply read June's 5 handwritten lines. The entire room fell silent. Some wept. Others stood and applauded. 6 months later, 12 showrooms had successfully implemented the model. The Rock hosted a private summit. During it, he shared, "I used to think strength came from size, from speed, but real strength is doing what's right, even when it slows you down." Marla sat in the front row. Beside her was Evan, now National Director of Culture Training. Evan looked around, then whispered, "Do you see it? Titan's no longer a showroom, it's a declaration." Marla smiled gently. "Declarations are easy to write. Living by them is how you make them real." Titan Motors has officially signed a joint venture agreement with Kyoto Mobility, one of Japan's leading automotive corporations, to implement its cultural showroom model in the Asian market. This marks the first time the philosophy of humanizing luxury service is being tested outside the borders of the United States. Marla arrived in Minato Ward, Tokyo, inside the grand glass lobby of Titan Kyoto, a newly built showroom designed as a perfect replica of Titan 1. In front of her was a row of guest consultation desks. Behind them stood impeccably dressed Japanese staff, their expressions polite but reserved. Across the table sat Kazuo Tanaka, Regional Director for East Asia, appointed by Kyoto Mobility as the liaison. Kazuo began the meeting, speaking fluent yet cold English. "I understand the idea of putting people before procedure, but Japanese culture values structure. Customers here expect respect, through order, not emotion." Marla nodded. She replied calmly, "I didn't come here to teach anyone to change. I came to listen. But let me ask just one thing. When customers walk out of Titan Kyoto, do they leave with a car or with the feeling that they were seen?" Kazuo was silent, but the coldness in his eyes began to soften. During the second week of the pilot launch, Titan Kyoto received a South Korean customer, a businessman in Tokyo, to sign a trade contract. He came with a young assistant dressed casually. Following Japanese custom, the receptionist offered the VIP seat to the businessman alone, leaving the assistant standing behind. But the assistant turned out to be the authorized buyer. He left shortly after, without saying a word. An hour later, surveillance footage of the scene was uploaded to Japanese Twitter with the caption, "An American showroom still operating with Asian hierarchy." The internet exploded. Titan Kyoto was accused of emotional messaging, discriminatory execution. At headquarters, The Rock held an emergency call with Marla via a secure line, but an internal recording of the meeting was leaked online, including the moment Marla said, "We can't wait for the whole world to agree with kindness." The quote, taken out of context, became a headline across multiple articles attacking the model as a Western cultural invasion into Eastern traditions. A day later, a cybersecurity report confirmed. The source of the leak was Asuka Moriyama, head of implementation at Kyoto, and someone personally selected by Marla. Marla was stunned. Asuka had once been a student in the first training cohort. She had cried while sharing how her mother had been mistreated in a past showroom. Marla met Asuka at a small cafe inside Shibuya Station. Her eyes were red, her voice hoarse. "Why?" Asuka lowered her head, then looked up. "Because I think you believe too much in something that doesn't exist. Here, everything functions on form. Sincerity has no place." Marla gently shook her head. "Then have you ever thought, if everyone believes as you do, would goodness ever have a chance to exist?" Asuka didn't reply. 1 week later, The Rock made a surprise appearance at Titan Kyoto. He gave no prior notice. He simply walked into the showroom and stood at the reception desk. At first, no one recognized him. But when the eyes of the staff met his, no business card was needed. They understood. Kazuo came out to greet him. The Rock spoke briefly. "I'm not here to apologize. I'm here to say, we're not backing down. Culture isn't a product. It doesn't need adaptation. It just needs to be lived." The Rock, Marla, and the Titan Motors leadership team composed a letter addressed to all staff and global partners. It included the passage, "We don't build culture to please. We build it to awaken. Some places may reject it today, but if we persevere, they'll need it tomorrow." The letter was translated into 9 languages and published publicly. Surprisingly, it didn't spark more backlash. It inspired. Hundreds of employees from around the world wrote in support. Kazuo sent a private note to Marla. "I was wrong. Maybe kindness is the only language that doesn't need translation. But first times are always the hardest." 3 years since the day The Rock walked into Titan 1 wearing a gray hoodie and old sneakers, the entire world of luxury service had changed. But today, he wasn't returning to talk about what had changed. He came back to ask himself, and the team that once walked beside him, what have we truly held on to? Titan 1, Sunville, early morning. Marla stood alone in the second-floor conference room, looking down at the showroom lobby. Evan was coaching new employees on how to receive customer feedback as a conversation, not a survey. She smiled faintly, but her eyes still carried the weight of reflection. In the past 3 years, she has traveled to over 60 cities, implementing nearly 100 showrooms with the Titan culture. But, for the first time, she felt tired. Not physically, but because of a question growing louder inside her. When something becomes a system, is it still a dream? A familiar black car pulled into the same old spot, the west parking corner, where it all began. No entourage, no announcement. The Rock stepped out. No longer a man auditioning inside his own system, but someone returning from the very world he helped create. He entered the showroom, where the staff had yet to recognize him. A young female employee approached. "Good morning, sir. How can I assist you?" The Rock smiled. I just want to take a walk around." She nodded, unsuspecting. But when he laid his hand on the limited edition Aventra, the same spot he had once been stopped at 3 years earlier, Evan saw him. Evan ran over and embraced him. "You really came back." The Rock simply said, "I need to know, is this dream still real?" The entire founding team was called back to Titan 1. Some had moved on. Some were working across 3 time zones. Some had once disagreed with Marla, but they all showed up. The Rock stood before the old whiteboard in the same glass room. No slides, no assistant. He wrote 3 words on the board. Why now? "I didn't call you back to celebrate. I called you to ask, If we were starting from scratch today, would we choose to do this all over again? Marla sat quietly, eyes on the window. Evan folded his hands, deep in thought. A moment passed, then Marla stood. I'd still choose it, but maybe I'd walk slower and hold on to less. The Rock nodded. So would I. Back then I carried too many expectations. Now I only need to hold on to one thing. Kindness is not a strategy, it's a choice. That very afternoon, an older man walked into the showroom. He was modestly dressed, carrying a worn leather briefcase. The receptionist greeted him as usual, but he said nothing. He simply gazed at the cars, eyes heavy. The Rock stepped out and approached gently. Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you with anything? The man looked up, speaking slowly. I came here 5 years ago. I was turned away because I didn't look like someone who could buy. Today I've come back, not to buy, but to see if you're still like that. Silence. The staff listened. No one offered excuses. Marla walked over, bowed her head slightly. If it were me that day, I'm sorry, sir. If it's us today, please stay for some tea, not to buy anything, just because you came back. The man nodded, and he stayed for almost an hour, just to sit and look at the cars. No one pressured him, no one asked anything more. As he was leaving, he said, for the first time, I didn't feel like my wallet was checked before my humanity. That evening, the Rock sat alone in the main lobby. Marla sat beside him. He didn't say much, just pulled a worn piece of paper from his pocket. The first page of his handwritten notebook, from the day Titan 1 began. It read, if it's one day I'm consumed by the very system I built, please remind me, I didn't start this to build an empire. I started it to make a change. He handed the paper to Marla. Keep this for me, not because I'm leaving, but because I'm about to start again. She smiled, tears falling. Where are you going? The Rock stood. To the place no one yet thinks needs kindness. Titan 1 turned off its lights at 10:17 p.m., but the light inside those who stayed behind never went out. Because they understood. Changing the world doesn't begin with power. It begins with those moments when we treat others like human beings, even when no one is watching.